On behalf of Comrade President, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, we have just handed over the keys to the first batch of buses to the Minister of State in charge of mobility.
The sun rose over Ouagadougou with an energy that felt different, almost electric. By mid-morning, the airwaves were seized by a voice millions knew. Ibrahim Traoré's voice, calm, deliberate, carrying the weight of a continent's hope. Traoré, to the youth of Africa, you are not the future, you are the present. And the present deserves the tools to move, to connect, to build. Today, I announce the gift of 1,000 million buses, free, for you. The city erupted. From dusty villages to bustling capitals, the news spread faster than wildfire. Parents wept openly. Young men and women danced in the streets. Traders abandoned their stalls just to huddle around crackling radios. Youth voice. This changes everything. We will no longer be trapped by distance. Our dreams will have wheels. But not everyone was celebrating. Behind closed doors in foreign embassies, the atmosphere was tense. In Paris, Washington, and London, men in suits leaned over polished tables muttering about economic irresponsibility and loss of transport market control. Bus manufacturing giants, many with billion-dollar contracts across Africa, saw their monopolies slipping away. Foreign advisor, if the youth can travel for free, they won't depend on the companies we control. This could collapse our influence in West Africa. In Ouagadougou's National Assembly, whispers turned into accusations. Opposition politicians claimed the plan would bankrupt the nation. Some dismissed it as an election stunt. But the streets told another story, a story of belief, of possibility. Then the first convoys arrived. Buses painted in the Pan-African colors of red, green, and gold, the words "Africa moves together" emblazoned boldly across their sides. They came in unending lines, stretching from horizon to horizon. Market woman. I can now take my goods from my village to the capital without paying a single franc. This is not just a bus, it's freedom. University students from Ghana planned weekend visits to friends in Mali. Farmers from rural Niger began charting routes to markets they had only heard of in stories. Musicians dreamed of touring freely across borders. The flow of people, ideas, and culture began to resemble a great river, unblocked, unstoppable. But this river of change stirred dark currents. In the shadows, foreign-backed groups moved to sabotage the dream. Buses were vandalized in the dead of night. Shipments of spare parts vanished mysteriously at customs checkpoints. Certain international media outlets painted the project as chaotic and unsustainable. Traoré. They fear your movement because they fear your unity. But these buses are not just steel and wheels. They are your right to move, to trade, to meet, to dream. No one can take that from you. The tension reached its height on the day of the grand rollout ceremony. Ouagadougou's main avenue became a sea of metal and color. 100,000 buses lined the streets, engines humming in unison. The air throbbed with the sound of drums, chants, and song. 1 million youth gathered, waving flags and singing revolutionary anthems. Helicopters circled above, capturing aerial footage that would stun the world. From that height, the buses looked like rivers of color flowing outward from the heart of Africa. Traoré stepped onto the stage, his voice carrying over the roar of the crowd. Traoré. Let this day be remembered as the day Africa decided to move forward. Not one step, not one city, but an entire continent at once. The crowd's cheer was so loud that even the engines seemed to pause. The first convoys began to move, crossing borders without hesitation, rolling across deserts and savannas, over rivers and mountains. From that day on, no African youth was bound by distance. A carpenter in Burkina Faso could sell furniture in Lagos. A student in Kenya could attend a workshop in Senegal. An artist in Chad could display work in Accra without ever worrying about the cost of the journey. And as the sun set over the convoy stretching into the horizon, one truth settled over the continent. This was never just about transportation. It was about connection, dignity, and freedom. It was the first step toward an Africa that moved, together, unstoppable. The celebrations that had once filled the streets with joy now took on a new urgency. The movement sparked by the free buses was no longer just about transportation. It had become a force reshaping the continent's very future. In secret rooms far from African soil, foreign powers conferred. The sudden rise of a united mobile youth was a threat too great to ignore. Plans were drawn to choke supply lines, to undermine the economy, to isolate Traoré and his vision. Foreign diplomat. We cannot allow this pan-African mobility to undermine decades of influence. We must cut off funding, disrupt maintenance, and sow division. But across Africa, a new network was rising. Youth councils formed in every city, village, and town. Using the buses as moving hubs, they organized trade caravans, mobile classrooms, and cultural festivals that blurred borders and built bonds. Youth leader. These buses are more than vehicles. They are classrooms, marketplaces, homes on wheels. They carry not just people, but ideas that no one can silence. Meanwhile, Traoré moved with purpose. He toured the continent, speaking to crowds of tens of thousands in open-air forums, his voice a beacon of hope and resistance. Traoré. They will try to divide us, to stop our movement with fear and force. But the spirit of Africa is stronger than their threats. We move forward, not as isolated nations, but as one. Economic sanctions hit hard. Some governments wavered under pressure, but the youth movement was unstoppable. They built repair workshops, trained mechanics, and used social media to document sabotage and injustice. International solidarity campaigns sprung up, rallying support from diasporas worldwide. In the final great act, a massive convoy, thousands strong, gathered on the border between two nations, once divided by conflict. Leaders from both sides stood together, shaking hands as the buses crossed freely for the first time in decades. Narrator. On that day, the buses did more than move people. They moved hearts. They moved history. Africa was no longer bound by old borders or foreign interests. It was moving, together, free, and unstoppable. And so, as the sun set over a continent in motion, Ibrahim Traoré's promise had been fulfilled. 1,000 million buses had become 1,000,000 dreams. Dreams carried forward by the youth who would build Africa's future on wheels of hope and unity.